Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings with me, Michael Jex, the tea drinking author who actually has a cup of breakfast tea from Twinings, which is the sort of thing that, well, it certainly wakes you up in the morning. First of all, I have to say thanks enormously to some of the people who have been writing in recently. I've received a fair number of emails from people who have found these videos useful, and that is enormously satisfying. It really is. One said, and I've got to just look it up here. He said that I thought this was rather nice actually. He said that my diabetes videos have influenced him to better control his own blood glucose. Good. In a way that other advice has failed in the 15 years since I was diagnosed. Well, that's the trouble. It's getting information that's so difficult. He said the almost no-carb diet has halved his blood glucose results in 3 months and reduced his weight by 15 kilos. Both of those enormously important if you're diabetic. Thinking outside the usual foods by having swede chips, cauliflower or spinach hash browns has been a very interesting journey. He said, I only visited your videos because of my interest in journaling and pens. What a spin-off. He said he's got an HbA1c retest at the end of the month and he's looking forward to it. He said that the interesting thing is that every medical person he's spoken to over the last few weeks is amazed when he says he's following my advice. Even my wife, who was a nurse in Exeter for over 40 years, tells me your advice goes against much of her training. And the trouble is that people get set in their ways, don't they? They think, well, okay, this is how you sort out this illness, this is how you deal with diabetes, and that's it. There's no need for any more research. That's the end of it. Except it's not, is it? And now a quick pause while I charge this iPad. You may notice there's been a slight glitch with this. The sound will probably not be quite as good because my trusty microphone plugs into the same port there that takes the power. And owing to the fact that this device, this iPad, has just run out of battery, I've got to charge it while doing this talk. I'll apologise now. I am in the process of recording a number of videos because I'm going away for a few days at the end of the week. And I'm not going to be able to record while I'm away. I'm going to have limited time to record between now and leaving. So I thought I'd better get things done and dusted quickly today before I go. So anyway, thank you very much to that delightful fellow for telling me that. It's always really reassuring when you get confirmation from people that the little chats you do on YouTube like this actually are helping people. So if you find this lot useful, do please let me know. The usual riders must be stated. I'm not a doctor, I'm not medical by training. This is just the result of me using trial and error and guesswork and trying to figure out what is working for me as a diabetic person. You should check everything as soon as you can with your own diabetic specialists and see what they say. I'm certainly finding that it's quite a challenging thing learning what you need to from people. For example, because I'm going away on a cycling 4-day journey across the north of France. Not a hugely difficult one, but it's proving to be challenging in a number of ways. We'll be covering 40 to 50 miles a day, which shouldn't be too difficult. It's not very hilly. It's not like Dartmoor, for goodness sake. But I thought it'd be a good idea to monitor my bloods routinely, and rather than cycling for an hour, stopping, pricking a finger and testing my blood that way, I've invested 50 quid in a 2-week sensor which constantly updates my phone, and this is the Libra Freestyle from Abbott Laboratories, which is a great device. It is very useful, and if I look at my bloods now, I go on to the Libra link and it tells me that my bloods are 6.1. That is about getting on for 2 hours after breakfast, and after 2 hours it should be below 7.5. According to diabetes.co.uk, which is one of the websites that I use, and it's very helpful. The trouble is, the advice is so flexible. Now, I have a finger pricking device. It is a JAG Agar Matrix, and it's one of the standard things. It comes with a lancet. You stab your finger, produce a drop of blood, wipe away the first drop of blood because it could be contaminated by something on your skin. Yep, I didn't know that either until I spoke to the Jazz people. Wipe away the first drop, squeeze out a second drop, put it onto the test strip, and it bleeps at you and tells you when it knows what your bloods are doing, which is jolly useful. It's very handy. And I think it's very accurate. Although, how accurate? Each one of those test strips is manufactured. So to what degree of accuracy are they? How accurate is this? Now, I've got a good friend who's probably watching this, hello Kim, who tells me that he regularly checks, at least once a year, he will take his blood pressure monitor to the doctors, and he'll sit there and he will test his arm with the blood pressure monitor in the medical centre, and then he'll test it with his own device as well, so he can see exactly how accurate his device is, because the ones in the medical centre will be serviced very regularly. So you can have a degree of comfort that they will be accurate, whereas the thing that you buy from Boots the pharmacy, Boots the chemist, most of them will probably be quite accurate, but how accurate are they really? How accurate is this? Well, I know that having done some tests yesterday, that is 0.4 mmols per litre out. The Jazz works to, this was registering 6.2 when the Jazz Agar Matrix was 5.8. This was at 7.2 when the Jazz Agar Matrix was at 6.8. So I'm sort of assuming that this thing is the more likely inaccurate device, because each of those test strips registering 0.4 below seems to imply that the test strips are more likely to be accurate. Why? Because if there's a degree of inaccuracy with the manufacturing of the test strips, you'd have one would be out and then the next two would be more. If 3 tests are consistent, then it's likely that those 3 strips are accurate and it's this that's being wrong. Does that make sense? I didn't explain that very well, but in any case, I've had more test strips. It's more likely that those are accurate if they're all consistent than one thing here being accurate instead. So yeah, that's interesting. Now, when you get these things and you use the app on your phone, you get the ability to have warnings when you're hypo or hyperglycemic. So when your blood sugars drop to a dangerously low level, or when they rocket to a dangerously high level. But what is a dangerous level? On this app, it has a warning which you can set to on, which I have set to on because my wife wants to know when things go bad. But the lowest warning you can set it to is 3.4 mmol per litre. The highest setting you can set it to is something like 15. Now, in my paperwork that comes with the Jazz Agar Matrix thing, the finger stabby job, it says in that if your blood sugars go below 1.1 mmol per litre, you should contact your health professionals. If it goes above 33, not 15, 33, then you should contact your health professionals.
Well, that raises several questions to me. One, is it just because they're accepting a certain degree of inaccuracy with this? And if it gets to 3.4, then that could be 1.1 and therefore you're in danger? Or is the Jazz device just working on the basis that, well, you're probably okay at 2, but if it gets down to 1, then you're really in danger? I think I rather prefer the idea of getting to 3 and knowing that there's a potential approaching hazard than getting to the situation where I've already crashed through the floor or crashed through the barrier at the top. But I don't know. So I'm going to be talking to my healthcare professionals this week before I go away on my cycle ride, because cycling will mean using a lot of energy. And how should I renew that energy? I don't want to touch sugary drinks. I don't want to have lots of chips or other carbohydrates. So should I take lots of apples? I'll be eating lots of meat. I'll be buying French saucisson like it's going out of fashion and seeing how they work. But it will be a case of pricking my finger a fair few times and using this and checking things that way. There's another side to this though, which is that last night, as an example, I was woken up 3 times because it said that my blood sugars had got dangerously low, down to about 3.3 or so. So it woke me up to let me know that. As soon as I looked at it on the graphs that it displays, it showed me that in fact I wasn't that bad. Well, okay, you can see here that it was definitely too low, trying to get the reflection of the window out of the way. So it did drop right down to below 3.4, I think. But then when I looked at this and went straight to the home page, there you can see, it was telling me it was at about 5. So the warning reading came through because it was so low, but in fact when I looked at the page it didn't seem to think it was that low. Now it could be just because there is a time delay. This thing's Bluetooth connected to this, which is great, it makes life a darn sight easier, but it does mean that there's a delay between picking up your result on the phone compared to what your blood is actually doing. Well, that's not entirely reassuring, is it? I don't think it's a very long delay, but if your warnings are coming through and waking you up in the middle of the night and probably driving your blood sugars haywire, it doesn't really help if that's already 20 minutes too late and you're now back to normal. Something else to speak to the healthcare professionals about. So this is a slightly scrappy video, I do apologise for that, but it's really a case of, as usual with my little Witterings about diabetes, I'm thinking through what's happened and what I need to do as I'm talking to you. But the main takeaway would be, I think, it's fairly certain that these things, the little remote sensors, are very, very handy. They're hideously expensive at £25 a week, £1,200 a year. I've banged on about that often enough. When you can buy a little wristband that uses laser lights to be able to test what your blood sugars are doing, I'll be considerably relieved, and that'll be worthwhile investing. But these are probably going to be more accurate. And then the finger stabby lancet device is going to be more accurate again, I think. So I'm going to stick with stabbing my fingers routinely, not quite as often as I used to, but it's a good way of calibrating and making sure I know what my bloods are actually doing. In the meantime, it's a case of constantly checking up with different websites and videos to find out which are the right sort of numbers to be looking for and The other side is, if I discover that I am hypo or hyperglycemic, it's nice to know, but no one's actually told me what to do about it. So while I'm away cycling, if I suddenly fall off my bike because I'm hypo or hyper, what should I tell my buddies to do, apart from phone the French ambulance service urgently? I don't know, so I'm going to check that up too. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. It was very much a Wittering. Apologies for the slight glitch at the beginning when I had to cut off and shove the charging cable into this iPad. If you want to support the channel, feel free to go down below. There's a Patreon link. There you'll find lots of different bits of information, not generally about diabetes, but you will at least have the great comfort of knowing that you're supporting this wonderful source of information about my complete lack of knowledge about diabetes. Or you can buy me a coffee and all those other good things. Any sort of resource that's taken is always gratefully received. And the other thing, of course, if you wanted to, which really would help me and might help you too, is you can always buy one of my books. Here's a copy of the latest one, which comes out in October, but it's available pre-release for you to pre-order now if you wish. Brilliant book. It says superb, a fast-moving and gripping plot. That was Publishers Weekly. Well, they obviously know what they're talking about. Right, thanks a lot for watching. Take care, keep healthy, and speak to you soon.